Alright, there have been some questions and comments regarding Kabbalah and true Kabbalah and things like that. So I just wanted to actually address some of those today. I'm going to lump them all together in today's video. Welcome to my channel. You are entering the world of magic and mysticism with your host, Lee W. Johnson. Keep the lights on and help improve the channel by becoming a supporter for just $2.99 per month. Hit the join button. Alright, so Kabbalah. Now I'm hoping to get my old friend and mentor Jacobus G Swart on at some stage to do an interview. I'll try and organise that as soon as I can. But what I'm going to do today is we're going to have a look at what Kabbalah is, and I'm going to refer to Jacobus's the Book of Self-Creation. This is his first book. This is the second edition, so this is the latest one if you go buy it. I'll put the link in the description to his Lulu store for Sangreal Fidelity. So we're going to have a look for that. Alright, so first of all, which books to read on Kabbalah. Now, when it comes to Kabbalah, there's a variety of different ways you can approach it. There is a study of traditional Kabbalah, which often goes directly and exclusively into studying the Tree of Life. There is also Kabbalah Ma'asit, or Practical Kabbalah, which is very much what Jacobus talks about. This is Jewish magic. Okay. Now, it was commented that Kabbalah is purely Jewish. Traditional Kabbalah is purely Jewish, yes. However, and it was also commented that anything else is watered down. You might find that the Jewish faith itself, I'm not sure I can call it watered down, but what I'm trying to say is that when you look into Judaism, a lot of the Jewish magic, practical Kabbalah, is missing. And the reason for that is because over years and centuries it was progressively removed, because Jewish magic is not supposed to be done by other people besides the rabbis. So there's kind of been that weeding out of certain aspects, certain practices from the Jewish faith. So when we go into Practical Kabbalah, there's a whole series and set of practices and magical practices which are outside that. And this is really the reason why I want to get Jacobus on for an interview, is because he explains it so much better than I possibly can. That's why I want to read a few passages from the introduction of this book. Alright, so when we look at Kabbalah, Kabbalah is, we have traditional Kabbalah, then we have Christian Kabbalah, we have Hermetic Kabbalah, and we have all forms of different Kabbalah, which are kind of, a lot of them are bastardizations of what Kabbalah actually is. The whole idea here is to understand traditional Kabbalah to begin with. Once you understand traditional Kabbalah, then you can start applying it to other systems, other traditions and faiths. In fact, let me read. There was a mention of assigning the chakras to the Tree of Life. Yeah. As a case in point, consider, for example, the Oriental doctrine of the chakras. There have been several studies relating the system to the Kabbalistic Tree of Life. There is fundamentally no problem doing such a comparative inquiry and deriving a lot of meaning from it. However, it would be wrong to consider the chakras to be part of official Kabbalistic doctrine, especially when Kabbalah does not acknowledge any link to this Oriental system whatsoever, and when no similar comparative application of the Tree of Life exists within Kabbalistic doctrines. So if you're going to use traditional Kabbalah and the Tree of Life and such things to try and understand something within another system, that's fine. But once you do that, don't take it and apply it to Kabbalah and say it is Kabbalah, because it's not Kabbalah. It's an integration of two things which are neither at the end of the day. So there's nothing wrong with it, but don't try and assign it to being Kabbalah. So as I said, there's a variety of different Kabbalistic approach. We have the Traditional Kabbalah, which is, Kabbalah is originally Jewish. That is Traditional Kabbalah or Jewish Kabbalah. And that is the basis. That's the root. That's where you start, and then once you understand that, you can then start applying. Let's have a look at some other stuff from the book. I'm going to read right from the beginning here. There's been a lot of bickering about what Kabbalah is and what it is not. Opinions have ranged from those who insist that Kabbalah is exclusively Jewish to those who would have the most foreign elements included in this tradition. I have no contention with the claim that Traditional Kabbalah is entirely Jewish in origin. However, I am equally aware that Kabbalah did not remain Jewish throughout the centuries of its existence, and that it diversified into what could be termed cross-cultural factions. Example, Jewish Kabbalah, Christian Kabbalah, and Hermetic Kabbalah. While these factions can certainly be perceived to be separate entities, all of them are nevertheless based on fundamental doctrines developed in Traditional Kabbalah. So as we see there, you have all these different factions, but they're all based in Traditional Kabbalah. I fully accept that much diversification has been going on regarding the fundamental teachings of this tradition, especially over the last century. However, having closely investigated such doctrinal variances, it is absolutely clear that this wonderful tradition would become meaningless when its fundamental principles are compromised. In other words, primary Kabbalistic teachings and rudimentary reasoning cannot simply be altered in accordance with a personal whim. Hence, it is necessary to understand the central, vital core teachings behind this tradition before adjusting parameters in alignment with personal perceptions. One simply can no longer speak of Kabbalah when the supposedly stable primary symbols and doctrines of this tradition have been sacrificed in the fray, such has been the case in a lot of works written in the name of Kabbalah and which have little or no relation to the tradition. There are those who would hard sell absolutely anything and call it Hermetic Kabbalah. As indicated, Traditional Kabbalah is a Jewish tradition. Christian and Hermetic Kabbalah are clearly offshoots of traditional Jewish Kabbalah. However, during the latter half of the 20th century, especially with the birth of the internet, we find Kabbalah being linked not only to outrageous, but to the depraved. One of the most ridiculous of this genre I have encountered is termed Tifonian Kabbalah. Alright, so now we're starting to get into this aspect of the cliphotic tree, or clipotic tree, what some people have called the tree of death on the left-hand path. And it's become a very big thing on the left-hand path. You have to travel the tree of death. I don't ascribe to this myself at all. I think it is a very modern invention and completely unnecessary. In fact, it has also been suggested that when you're on the left-hand path, you should only focus on the tree of death or the clipotic tree, because it pulls you further away from God. The Etz Chaim, the tree of life, the Kabbalistic tree, is often a representation of the fall of man. We have Malkut, which sort of fell down, and therefore the tree of death brings this further along, the fall of man, further away from God, etc., etc., etc. Now, if we consider God in terms of the Kabbalistic approach, God is everything and nothing. It is the cosmos. It is everything which we can perceive, understand, interpret, translate, and it is all those things that we cannot. It is all those things which are nothing, which are in between the spaces. There's absolutely no way of getting away from this. Absolutely no way. You cannot move further away from God, because no matter where you go, you are in that everything and nothing. It's kind of like if you imagine somebody in a room which is infinitely large, then they start running away from a point. They are still in the room. They will never be out of the room. They cannot move out of it because it is infinitely large. And it's really the same thing. You can't move away from God, because this aspect of God which is everything and nothing, because it is everything and nothing. I think you get my point. So that whole approach is, to me, a bit ridiculous. I think it's just purely invention that is just trying to move away from this concept of it's taking the Christian concept of God and trying to reject it as much as you possibly can. Get over it. Yes, we have a Christian God. He's considered an arsehole by many. I don't give a shit, personally. They can keep him. I don't want him. But that's not the same God we're talking about when we're talking about the Kabbalistic God, this everything and nothing. But it does seem to be that whole approach of trying to reject and push away as much as we possibly can, trying to come up with ways to do it as severely as we can, to reject it and push it away and banish it from our lives. Just reject it. There's no reason why you have to go and invent this whole freaking thing of a tree of death and these gory things. Actually, there's a good example of that in here. It's 2 paragraphs here. Carry on with Traditional Kabbalah. As an individual who likes to avail himself of all perspectives when it comes to a tradition to which I have devoted the major portion of my life, I was naturally intrigued when I chanced upon claims of Traditional associations with Kabbalah. I read several works dealing with this subject matter, amongst others those written by Kenneth Grant. I slogged through this trash in the hope of finding at least one fragment which might have some validity, instead of pertaining to the mysterious sensationalist type of occult literature, or being part of the I was flogged by fiends genre. What I found is that this literature panders to the gullibility of those who have a penchant for the grotesque and slimy green things, or of any other colour, provided the sliminess is left intact. The demonic features particularly prominently in the writings of Kenneth Grant et al., and this subject is equally addressed in Kabbalah. In fact, since the earliest beginnings of Kabbalah, the Mekubalim have debated and written on the Sitra Achra, the left side, considered to be the realm of the demonic, Klipot, demonic shards, all manner of possession, spirit impregnations, the magical invocation of a variety of spirit entities, including those considered demonic, even the intermarriage with demons, etc. So, even within Kabbalah, we have all of these aspects. So it really does seem to be this trying to invent something which is exclusively rejecting this aspect of God. But that, to me, speaks of someone who doesn't understand the concepts to begin with. Maybe they have studied Kabbalah, but I don't think they have. Either they haven't understood it properly, or they have just decided to target all the people who, come to this left-hand path. They probably come from Christianity and have got the trauma and everything else, and they see this and it is a complete and utter rejection of the Christian God. Therefore, that must be the way I need to go, because I want to reject this trauma. I want to get rid of this trauma. You can't get rid of trauma by just, jumping onto the other side of the fence. You've got to heal yourself from it. It's a process that you need to go through. But it just seems to be that, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but this is just my personal impression, that it's just people have created these gory, edgelordy aspects of the demonic, which are purely just attracting those people who have that Christian trauma. And because of that, they go from one extreme to another extreme instead of trying to find the middle way. And maybe that's a process that they need to take. They need to go from that one extreme to the other extreme in order to know both sides, so they can find that middle path. And that's fine. You know, how you heal is your own process, and everybody's process is going to be different. But all these people are creating all these edgelordy bullshit crap, are just really trying to target the gullible people so that they can sell their books and their courses for thousands. I mean, it's ridiculously priced half the time. You know, you write a book and you might sell it for like $20, maybe $30 or $40 even, depending on the content and the extent, the volume, the size of the work itself. But, you know, just writing a normal size book with normal information in and then trying to sell it for $100 or $200 is ridiculous. It's pathetic. It's just, it really is exploitation. And it really is targeting those people who have come from this Christian trauma and exploiting them. Purely, outright exploiting them. And the more expensive the book, the more valuable information it has to have in it. Rubbish, absolute rubbish. Anyway, I'm going to get on my soapbox again. So, yeah, when it comes to Kabbalah, traditional Kabbalah is Jewish, purely Jewish Kabbalah. And it should be approached in that manner, and it should be understood extensively. Not just on its surface level. It needs to be delved into properly. And I definitely recommend Jacobus G. Swart. Let me just put the book up again. I will put the link to his Lulu store in the description. Another author I would also recommend is Rabbi Gershon Winkler. His books have become a bit more difficult to find, I've noticed. I used to have one or two of his books, and then several years ago, hard times came about, and I sold them. I sold a lot of good books. Terrible. Anyway, Gershon Winkler goes very much into Jewish shamanism, goes right into the roots of the Jewish faith and the Jewish people, and it really is fascinating, amazing stuff. So, you know, if you are interested in Judaism, and especially if you're interested in shamanic approaches, then Gershon Winkler I definitely recommend. There are a lot of fantastic authors, but this would be my go-to. Jacobus's books are incredible, absolutely amazing, and I don't just say this because he is a personal friend of mine. I say this because he is just an amazing person. He is incredibly studied. He's been on the path for, I think, over 40 years. You know, really examining everything and reading original Hebrew texts, translating them, and really delving into the nitty-gritty of everything. And yeah, so Practical Kabbalah, definitely Jacobus. All right, so I'm going to now leave that here, and hopefully I will get Jacobus on soon, and I can ask him some more pertinent and interesting questions, and we can have a good chat. All right, so I will see you on Wednesday for Ask Lee. Have a good one for now. Bye bye.